think I realized, I was thinking we were going to have paper copies of the application packet. Do you have a paper copy there that I could? I was thinking that, and Amy and I talked about it today, and we don't have paper copies. Is that possible for you to print off that? And that'd be great. There we go.
Perfect. You're back in regular session. So the next thing on the agenda, so just wanted to announce to everyone that David Dunstan, who is our board representative for Zone 7 out the beach, has resigned as of earlier this month. He served 30 years on the ESD board, which I just wanted to clarify is really amazing. This is a volunteer job, and that is 3 decades on our board. He also served 12 years on the Lincoln County School District Board, but 30 years here, 12 years there, like that's just an amazing amount of service, which is pretty incredible. He has a letter of resignation that I was going to read aloud. All right, so to the LBLESD board and staff, after 30 years of service, I am resigning from my position as Zone 7 Lincoln County Board Representative. It has been an honor to serve alongside such dedicated individuals committed to improving education for all students in our region. I want to express my deep appreciation to the LBL staff for their excellence and professionalism in supporting our district. Please extend my gratitude to them. I wish the board continued success as you give your time and expertise selflessly and without personal agendas. My sincere hope is that current and future board members always remember that while elected from specific areas, we are entrusted to serve all students equally. Thank you for the privilege of serving. Sincerely, David Dunstan. And then we have processes that we follow in order to fill the vacant seat, and so I'm going to send it over to Jason to talk about how that works.
Yeah, so I'm just going to talk about this in general, and then I spaced getting these printed for you, and Lori, we'll send it to you in email so you can look at it after. But essentially, here's the process, is that the board needs to actually vote on creating a vacancy. So in a little bit, we're going to need a motion that is going to approve the opening of Zone 7 as a vacancy. And then what that means is the board actually gets to select who would fill that seat for the remainder of the term. And so what we're going to do is put information out there into the Lincoln County space to solicit people that might be interested in serving in that seat. My recommendation to the board is that we open this as soon as we can. I have already written, and I'll send this to you all in email. I worked on this with David recently, but there will be a press release that will go to the Lincoln County newspaper. We will get information to the Lincoln County School District, and they will get it out through their channels, which honestly is probably better than the newspaper in terms of getting information out there to interested parties. We'll get the information out there, and then we will let them know that there is a deadline for, and I don't remember the date offhand, Lisa will have this for you, where there'll be a deadline for them to submit an application. It's a pretty simple application, but they have some essay questions, so you get a chance to see, like, why do they want to be on the board? And then, thank you. So after they submit their application, the applications are going to be due September 8th. What this allows for the board to do is to review the applications. Lisa will collect the applications. We'll put them into the board packet for your September board meeting. You'll get a chance to review the applications. We can also ask that the applicants come to the board meeting and be interviewed if you'd like to do some interview questions with them. And then my recommendation will be to actually make a decision that night. If you are able, I would recommend that you decide that night who you would like to select so that during the October board meeting, the person can actually be sworn in. That puts us in a spot where we're only 2 meetings out from having basically a potential of a 3-3 split on any vote. So we want to get a board member in as soon as we can, but we also want the process to be thoughtful for you. And so you can see in here that the application that we've used in the past, this has actually happened recently several times. In fact, Amy started on the board during one of these vacancies. And Michael started on the board during another vacancy. And so this process has worked pretty well, in my opinion. It gives enough information for somebody to share who they are. We have some verifications and checks that we do in terms of them living inside the boundary. You can see the questions that are there. We ask for some references, and then they submit the application to Lisa. One of the things that has happened in the past is that the board chair has put together, if you'd like to do an interview, the interviews were about 10 or so minutes per person. If you'd like to do an interview, the board chair put together a list of questions as proposed questions and sent it out by email and asked for if there's any other types of questions that they'd like to see. And we put a series of questions together that then got discussed in the board meeting prior to doing the interview. So there's a little time for the board to have a discussion about what the interview might look like, and then we can bring people in to interview if that's what you're interested in doing. The good news is that we do know of one candidate that would be a quality candidate, so we actually know that there would be well, hopefully he's still interested. There would be at least one person that I think that would be interested, and I wanted to share this so that you know, and you know about that we already checked on any possible conflict, but it's actually Lisa's counterpart in the Lincoln County School District. So he's the executive director of the Lincoln County School District. We checked with OSBA on this. Executive assistant of the Lincoln County School District. We checked with OSBA on this actually a couple of years ago, and then in between since then as well, because David has talked about resigning multiple times over the past couple of years. And so there is no conflict. His name is Eddie. There would be no conflict for Eddie to serve on our board because he's not an employee, and it's not as though just because he's an employee of one of our school districts that he can serve on the board. So whether he applies or not is, of course, totally up to him, and I have no idea if that's going to really happen, but it is one person that we know of. So with that, I'll just stop and see if you have any questions, or if you'd like to see anything different in terms of the process. But if you are amenable to what we have presented here, the motion is at the top of page 3. The suggested motion would be the motion to approve the opening of Zone 7 seat and utilize the proposed application process. We do actually need a motion to be able to proceed. I'll stop there if you have any questions.
If we just want to take like 30 seconds and read over the questions, and if everyone's comfortable with most of it just talking about why you're interested, what's your background, what's your, understanding, and what's your, what prior interactions have you had with ESDs or with LBL, and the really only, essay question that's not directly, that's more like an essay, philosophical question, is the last one, which is how do you define equity and how do you see the ESD's role in improving equity in our service? If anyone has questions or comments on the application.
Yeah, and what we can do, if you'd like to see something change, I could make notes on this, and then we could just have a motion based on, the application process as presented with edits or something. And I'll capture those, and then Lisa will update it, or we send it out. But by the end of the week, this week, our plan is to get it out there so that we can start getting people.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I'm
Sorry.
sure that I approve whatever those questions are.
Oh,
Yes,
I am
sorry,
so
Lori.
sorry,
Yes, we were
Lori.
gonna email it. All right, do you have the
Oh,
ability to
that's
look again?
okay. I really
Okay.
believe that y'all have thought about what kinds of questions. You've been through this procedure before. I don't think that I need to give input at this point, so please accept my approval. without viewing it.
Sorry about that.
Okay, yeah, apologies with our figuring out with Zoom and whatnot, so.
Make a motion. I move to approve the opening of Zone 7 seat and utilize the proposed application process.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to approve the opening of the Zone 7 seat and to use the proposed application process. Any discussion? All right then, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. Sorry, I need to remind myself not to go too fast since we have someone on Zoom, so that's my bad. Thank you. All those against say no. All right, it has been so moved to approve the opening of the Zone 7 seat and to utilize the proposed process. And then also, I did want to add, it would probably be nice for us to recognize David's decades-long services or service as a board member. And so we don't have to make a decision on what to do right now, but I just wanted to ask you all to think about what you think might be appropriate, and then maybe we can have it as an agenda item next month. But I just wanted us to start thinking about what we might like to do for him. So.
That's great. We can put it on the agenda for next month if you'd like to do that.
That would be fantastic. All right. And then next is board director reports.
Okay, I do. First, I'll start with, I attended the Albany Pride, so I'll mention that. It was nice. I actually showed up as Wonder Woman, because that is one of my cosplays that I do. I do that for my community, for something that brings me joy. So I was there, and I saw our booth, LBL booth, and I stopped by and said hi. It was really wonderful to be part of those events. Last time I went was 2 years ago. And so I feel like it uplifts and makes LBL be part of the community, especially in these moments where inclusivity and equity are very important, especially the sense of belonging. So it was really nice to see LBL at Pride. I'm always excited to see us represented in these areas. So I just want to say that it was wonderful. I saw Bill, I saw ya. Yeah, and so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a number of staff there. It was a great.
Yeah. And then the other thing I do want to mention, I do have a statement I would like to read. And so I want to take a moment to speak from the heart about what happened at last month's meeting. When we were discussing the change of meeting day, I shared my preference respectfully and from my lived reality. As a single parent, Thursdays are sacred to me. As I shared at last month's meeting, Thursday is the last night of the week I have with my children, and I protect that time with intention and love. Wanting to support Jason, as we all do, the only alternative that worked for me was Tuesday. I was the only board member to indicate a specific day that worked, while everyone else expressed that either day would work. In response to my comments, a fellow director stated that we sign up for this as volunteers. That remark caught me off guard and deeply upset me. I left that meeting in tears, not because I can't handle disagreements, but because I felt my voice, my experience, and my role on this board were dismissed and disrespected. Yes, we are volunteers, but we are also leaders in public service. And more importantly, we are human beings. I bring to this board my full self, not just as a professional and advocate, but as a person of color, a Latina, a young single parent, and someone who represents voices often missing at tables like this one. My experience matters. It belongs here. Time and time again, we hear from stakeholders that they want representation. Single parents, marginalized communities, those who understand the daily challenges of raising children while navigating systems that weren't built for us. I am here to make those voices heard. As directors, we should be able to speak freely from our lived experiences, without shame or prejudice from others. We intentionally created our equity lens to foster safe, inclusive spaces, not just for students and staff, but also within this board. That same safety and respect must extend to each of us. This is not just about me, it's about all of us. As a board, we should be able to speak our truth without judgment or dismissive pushback. I want to move forward from what happened, but I also want to be clear. Disrespect has no place on this board. As directors, we owe each other mutual respect and must treat each one another with dignity. We also owe it to our students, our community, and to ourselves. When we speak to one another, we must be mindful on how our words land and what they say about the kind of leadership we model. For that reason, I recommend we revisit our board code of conduct together, so we can reaffirm our shared commitment to respect, professionalism, and empathy, the standards our communities expect from us. We're here to fight for our students. Let's also commit to doing that by respecting each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Miriam. And then I just wanted to add, so we do have the OSB training set up with Vince. We're going to do it over the next few months, starting, I believe, the beginning of next month. I think we have September 3rd set aside, but as part of that, we'll revisit the board code of conduct, and then also just as a newly formed group, we're going to just establish expectations for our interactions with each other. That's something that we do every year and every time that we have new people, and we're also going to participate in team building activities. So I just wanted to share that. And then also, does anyone else have board reports to share? Yes.
I attended the OSBA conference, and that was drinking from the fire hose, so that was and one of the benefits I forgot to really anticipate was all the board members that I meet from our various districts, so that was really strong and good. And I made a commitment to try and get to school board meetings in my zone. I did get to the NEM Canyon one this last week, and that was very rewarding. The new superintendent there, I got to see her in action. I had to go to the Sweet Home one. Family thing came up, but I did watch it last night on Zoom. That was very interesting. And I saw one that went really well, one that was very contentious, and also Zeb Pride. So,
Yay, I know, right?
Yeah, I'm starting to learn all the acronyms too.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
And I wanted to add, so I don't know if this is really a part of direct report. However, I did want to share that I was contacted by Benton Lincoln Health Equity Alliance. And they have some programming coming up, and they wanted to invite board members as well as others, and I advised them to get in touch with either you or Troy.
So I did get an email, and then I can share that with everyone. I think the particular meeting, it was about health equity, correct? It's the organization that promotes health equity. I believe I'm unable to attend because it's late, but I will share, so if anyone is able to attend that, that would probably be good. So thank you for the reminder about that.
I can help with getting it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, you just send it to me. That's
Is
great.
it in person or online?
Clear on whether or not.
I don't, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we will share that information. Thank you for that reminder. Appreciate it. Okay, and we are on to policy.
Okay, so we have one policy and one administrative rule that goes with the policy. And I'll give you a little bit of background on this. So I'll put you to pages 28 through 42 for both of these. Just as a point, as Bill stated that, you get to drink out of the fire hose of learning as a new board member. Just as a point of clarification, the board has in the board's purview adoption of policy, and then with that, the administrative rules, the ARs, are something that I would do that usually is a little bit more detailed than the policy and is used as direction for how to carry out the policy. As a practice, our board here at LBL has regularly looked at both. So it's just a matter of, I will put the AR in front of you when we do the policy, get any feedback that you might have on it. It isn't something that needs to be approved. You're getting a chance to look at it, but the policy would definitely need to be approved in the consent agenda the next month if it's ready for that. So the background on this is that, it's been about, Michael heard about this at the city council, probably been about 4 months ago, 3 months ago, something like that. Yeah, regarding the ethics and food and everything else. And then we also got information from OSBA around the same time. So the Oregon Government Ethics Commission sends out guidance at different times regarding ethics with public employees and public agents, and which the board is also considered a public agent, or the board members. And so really what it stated is that we cannot serve food to staff members without it being an ethics violation unless we have a policy that states that such food at some luncheon or, at a board meeting like this or whatever is actually considered part of the compensation package. So that's really, and the recommendation that OSBA had when we talked to them about this is make the change. There's a very nominal, it's not a material cost in terms of, people getting a couple of lunches here and there, and basically make it so that we don't have issues with somebody violating public ethics law by getting them. And so you'll see in this that there's just a minor change. On page 29, we already had language in here regarding apparel, ESD logo apparel. And what we did is we added in the words food-related, work-related food and refreshment, and benefits from the use of loyalty rewards, points, or other mechanisms as part of the employee's compensation package. The rest of this is an interesting thing in which it's almost impossible to police, but it is problematic, is that if for some reason somebody makes a purchase and then gets reimbursed their purchase, and they use a credit card that has like 1% or 1.5 percentage points of a loyalty thing. Well, technically, they just benefited personally on their credit card from an ESD purchase. Or if, for some reason, you get a discount of internet service when you stay at a hotel. I mean, there's a variety of different things that are like that are very nominal, and instead of having those becoming potential issues for staff members, it's better for us just to have it in policy that we are not going to track it. So if somebody gets loyalty, it would be very rare that it would happen, because for the most part, all of our purchasing is done through purchase orders and public procurement cards anyway. It's not done with people's personal credit cards. But Costco is a good example. If, let's say, Lisa is like, I can get a better deal on whatever food and drinks we're setting up a meeting by going to Costco. Well, Costco doesn't have an agency card. So you have to use an individual's card, and if Lisa goes to Costco and she buys things and then she gets the points from Costco, we don't want to track that. We don't want Lisa to get in trouble for that. That's just, we don't want to go there. So that's what, so that's what that is there. Then if I flip ahead.
So Jason,
Oh,
on
yeah.
that also, that does also relate to, like, for instance, have a cell phone provider and they're like, oh, if you're a teacher or an educator,
Yes.
does that, you can get a discount?
Same thing.
Is
If
that the same
you
thing
show
as
up and you get
loyalty rewards, or where would that fall under?
It would fall under that. That's why it's just
Okay.
blanket loyalty rewards, points, or other similar mechanisms.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I'm like, I don't know if we actually use the
Exactly.
word
'Cause it-
discount.
Because I'm not going to get into a bunch of the language in the AR,
Okay, yeah.
but you can see when we get into the AR, we used to have language in the AR about, you couldn't get the 10% discount if you were the teacher, you couldn't, and those are, it's so ubiquitous in a way that we took it out. and OSBA approved the language that we have in
Okay.
here. So,
Perfect.
the other thing with this is that you can see, sometimes the other part of public ethics law has to do with employment and employment relations of family members. And so you can see on the top of page 31, I added a statement in here that, interestingly enough, never was a problem, but could have been a problem if we were working in the same building at the time. But my wife was an EIECSE employee, and we had policy in here that says employees who are members of the same family may not be assigned to work in the same building except by the superintendent's approval. Well, it would be a public ethics violation for me to approve that. So I added the statement, if the employee is a member, my wife is currently not an employee, but if the employee is a member of the same family as the superintendent, then the exception should be approved by the board. So that's what that is about there.
Okay.
So, and that was one of those interesting things as Katie was thinking about applying for a job. And, it's like, oh, well, let's look at policy to make sure that, to make sure I don't get in trouble. So, there we go. And then the AR just has a little bit more detail about these things, that you can see in there. It's pretty straightforward. The only other thing that's related to this that I did want to point out to you is you might ask this question about, well, what about the board? What about the meal that the board has? So we clarified this, and this was brought up during our planning session, actually, that I had with our chair and vice chair, and spot on, is that we really have no problem with the board receiving food, like a meal, as long as it is also provided to any of the public that show up.
Mhm.
So we have long had enough food for all of the audience members that come.
I know,
Yeah,
everyone,
exactly.
but you gotta eat.
But, last time when there were some supportive people that came along, we offered them dinner.
Yes.
So as long as we keep doing that, and OSBA did confirm that, is that as long as it's open to, if some person comes in, and wants to watch the video and says, well, can I eat dinner too? Yes, in fact, you can. Have a sandwich. And then we're okay. We don't actually need to call out anything special about that, because anything related to board members and ethics is pretty clear in statute, and that will be something that Vince Adams in his board training will cover. So you'll get some more information about that. But essentially, after you've read the staff ethics policy and AR, pretty much know what's what, because it's the same information. You can't accept gifts over $50, and all these things. So I'll pause and see if you have any questions, but, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Cut you off.
Nope.
It applies to swag at conferences too, that $50, yeah, just for clarification. And then I was also going to say, so a loyalty rewards points, benefits accrued are considered part of the employee's compensation where the use of such accounts results in a cost neutral or cost beneficial outcome for the ESD. So these are things where the ESD isn't paying anything, so that's either cost neutral or the ESD is benefiting.
Yeah. And the Costco example is probably the best one.
Exactly.
Like if for some reason the going to Costco benefits the ESD by being cheaper, then why wouldn't we do that? And, but yeah, if the first time that an employee goes and it gets rewards and it isn't cheap or something, then you would have an ethics violation. Yep, good on you for putting that.
I have a question. Absolutely. And one is around, I see like reference to like spouse, and then there is a clarification that it's like, that it includes domestic partners. But I wonder about, like other type of relationships, like if someone is somebody's boyfriend or girlfriend, how does that
So
fall
that's a
under
really
there?
good question. So in ORS, it's clear about who is considered a family member. And if you are, dating somebody at the time, they're not technically a family member at that time, according to the ORS. The policy in here, my recommendation is stick with exactly the language that we have
Okay.
because it's in ORS and that we shouldn't change it. Anytime we change something or do something that's different than it's in ORS, we accept the liability for that.
Okay.
So, yeah, but that's a good question. Yeah.
And
So family, when it says relative, and this would be on page 29, the definition of it is right there, and that's right out of the ORS. You know, relative means spouse, parent, step-parent,
Yeah.
child, sibling, et cetera.
Yeah.
And it does say member of household too, so if it's somebody who lives, even if they're not married and they live together, so
Yeah,
that would still.
exactly. Member of household is different
Mhm.
than, yeah.
And my other question is about that $50 gift
Yeah.
thing, right? Because when I was an early interventionist, this was something that would pop up, you know?
Yeah,
Especially when I am serving, like families who might be international, and there's always the offer of food,
yeah.
right? And over time, that would add up.
You're absolutely right.
Right.
And so what it is it's $50 from a single entity in that year.
Yeah,
And
but
so,
still, if
yeah,
I'm
it would
having
absolutely add up.
home
You'd have-
visits,
uh-huh.
yeah,
Yep, yeah. That is where, you know, staff members have to be careful about, you know, what they, same thing if you're at a conference and you win a raffle for a $50 gift card from, I don't know, I'll just pick Synergy, like we talked about Synergy earlier. Synergy, you know, gives a $50 gift card and you're like, I won the raffle, I've got an Amazon gift card. And then you go to another conference in the same calendar year and you get another gift card. The way that you. From Synergy, another gift card from Synergy. Now, you can't accept it, or what you could do, and staff members will often do, is they will give it to the ESD. You can accept it and then gift it to the ESD, and then you would not have violated ethics law. Now, your example is a little tougher if you're doing a bunch of home visits, and they're like,
Exactly.
hey, sit down and have a meal. What we recommend to our staff is, get yourself in that situation in terms of that familiarity, because it could build on itself.
yeah, I understand that, but there's another piece here where relationships are built, especially for some cultures, through food.
Yeah,
And when someone isn't accepting the food, it's like, I can't trust you.
yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, here's the other part that, you know, I think that's important is that what the determination of value is also, there's gray area in that.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be too worried about that, you know, in those types of situations. I totally understand, and yet at the same time, you know, when it comes to that $50 limit and everything, it's pretty clear, and we have to be careful.
Yeah, and it's not ESD policy that says $50, so we could say that because.
Oregon government.
Yeah, were it on there, I think we easily could say things on there to make the exceptions in the areas to do
Build
exactly what you're
relationship.
looking for.
Yeah.
But it's not actually within our purview to do it. What we really want to do with the policy is to make sure that we give everybody as much room as possible inside of what Oregon's requiring of us. Because ultimately, you know, unlike many of the policies that we do, this doesn't really have to do with the ESD. This is something for the employee themselves. If there's an issue, nothing gets filed on the ESD, it's on the employee. So we want to open the door as wide as we can to protect them, but also to be really clear that if you cross this line, you're crossing Oregon's line.
Right, I totally understand that.
Yeah.
But I know that as an early interventionist, like building relationships with families kind of like at the bedrock of the work that we
Totally,
do.
yeah.
And oftentimes policies aren't written with specific populations in mind either. You know, like
Totally true.
understanding how people develop relationships and how food, you know,
Yeah.
is not. Because in some other cultures, maybe food is considered like, oh, we're coming to
Yeah.
have this big meal. Whereas
Yeah.
in other cultures, it's like, this is how I show
Yeah.
that I'm building this relationship with you.
And
you
the
know?
good news
So-
in this case is food actually is going to be considered compensation, so they're
Okay.
anyway.
Okay,
You know,
good.
so there would not, the $50 gift limit is separate from the food in this case
Okay.
for the staff member. So your example is actually not a problem with this new proposed policy language. Yeah, yeah. And then I think that the other thing, just in general, that your point as well, well taken, is that when we can, like Rocco said, when we can create flexibility for ourselves, for our staff, to be able to do the right work for kids, we should, if we can, inside our purview of things. And then we will. We'll look at the policy language, we'll say, can we change this? We'll work with OSBA, we'll work with our attorneys to make sure that we can, do something different with it. If it's one of those things where it runs counter to the law and we can't, then we are just conscious about that. Good question.
Lori, did you have any questions? I'm trying to make sure that I'm conscious about.
No.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right, so, human resource matters.
I have an answer about synergy.
Thank you.
Question about
Perfect.
pricing, and I don't know why I didn't spot it right away. We have people that are sharing rooms. And so that's why it's kind of
That makes a lot more
So,
sense.
yeah.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, very well.
I couldn't hear that. I couldn't hear.
Some of the people at the conference, because we were wondering why there was dramatic differences in the prices between different people. Some people are sharing rooms at the
Okay,
Synergy conference.
Gotcha.
Good catch, thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
All right.
Thanks to my team, that really fills me in.
And good on them for, letting you know. All right, Christina.
So, when we had our meeting in
Excuse
July-
me. I'm sorry. Do we have to vote to approve these changes?
Good question. Yeah, go ahead.
They will come in the consent agenda. This is how we generally do policy.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
They like to, and we should have been more clear about it, but they like to give us plenty of warning, which we appreciate. So we get them a month ahead with the changes, we discuss the changes, and as long as everyone seems pretty good with it, then we just put it in the consent agenda for
Okay.
next month. Good
Okay.
question, thank you.
Very good question, Lori, yeah. And then this is the AR won't be, but as a matter of practice, the other thing that this always allows for is if you have other questions, and, sometimes I'm like this, where you're in the meeting and then the question pops up after the meeting, and you think, then you can reach out to me and we can get that clarification and we can put it in. Then what we would do if there needs to be other discussion, I would put it in as a second reading of the policy, not the first reading, and it wouldn't go into consent. If there are no concerns or anything, it just goes in consent.
Okay, thank you.
That's good.
All right, Christina.
So, because July's meeting ran long, we weren't able to give you a little bit of a heads up that we have new employee orientations this week. It's actually on Thursday, and so I wanted to just be able to kind of talk you through what that agenda looks like for the day. It's actually a 2-day experience for our new employees. The first day is what we consider our agency orientation, and then the second day on Friday, they spend with their specific programs or sites. And so this is my first year kind of facilitating this for this group. We have 18 new employees, and I use air quotes around employees because we have a mixture. We have at least one administrator, well, actually technically 2 administrators, about 7 or 8 classified staff, 3 new licensed staff, and the rest are contract house. And in the past, contract house hasn't always been included in the new employee orientation, and I really felt like that was an important piece because although they don't work directly for us, they do work for us, and so I wanted them to be included in that. So we have that cohort. We're going to start off the day with a little bit of breakfast and introductions, and then they're going to do a walk and talk tour through our building. And what we did for our off-site programs is we gave them specific conference rooms, and so these employees are going to be able to walk through our building and get to know all of our programs, either physically that are located here, or if they're not, they get to see a presentation from the administrator or some staff from those programs. So we're just calling it the program show and tell. So that's kind of how we're starting out our morning. And then we're gonna kind of get into some of the, nuts and bolts of like getting their badges and getting their insurance stuff taken care of. And the most important thing, getting their device up and running, so that in the afternoon, after they've had some lunch, they're gonna have a chance to meet in small groups with their different, labor groups. So we have a classified council president that's gonna meet with our classified staff. I'm gonna be meeting with the new administrators, and then our association is gonna meet with our new licensed staff. And so they're gonna have an hour after lunch, to do that. And then we're gonna close out the day with our, cultural compass activity, and some closing remarks from Jason. But that's kind of how we're gonna introduce these 18 folks to our agency. And then they get to spend Friday learning all the really important things to do their job. But you are welcome if you're free on Thursday. We start at 8:30 and go until 3:30. Drop in at any point if you want. We're going to be upstairs on the 3rd floor in the staff wellness space. And if we're out on the walk and talk, you'll see a group of people walking through the building. But you're more than welcome to join us.
All right.
Question,
That's right, yeah.
Dan, you might have mentioned, how many contract employees are welcome?
So we're at about 8 this year. Yeah, they're roughly half of the group.
And we try to hire our own employees as much as possible. It's just for the hard-to-fill positions where we're not able to directly hire.
Or really specialized positions, SLP.
Yes, that makes sense.
PT, OT, so physical therapist, occupational therapist, which is hard to fill those positions.
From year to year, do we get much transition of contract people wanting to join our team?
So there's all the contract house, depending on the contract house, there comes a point where either they have worked for their contract house long enough that then we can hire them, or we have to do a buyout, of their contract. So we're careful about that, but we have had success in the past where folks have been contract house, and then completed their contract house obligations and became our employees.
Thank you.
Which is, again, another reason why I'm trying to include them a little bit more in the orientation piece to say, hey, because, for some folks, contract house work is what they want to do. They like the variety of it, but other folks, maybe they are ready to settle down somewhere and stay with us.
We've actually, at least in the last 5 or so years that I've been here, we've had a number of people that we've actually had as regular employees after they've been here, and then it started out as contract. Sometimes it's after their contract, and sometimes we actually bought the contract out because we want them to stay. Or I can have a regular employee.
Alrighty, on to Rocco.
Already? It's only 7:30. All right, let's walk through financials. I'm going to go through this in just a touch more detail than I normally do, since we have some new eyes looking at what we are looking at financially each month. I want to make sure that you are digesting what it is that you're seeing before you and going to get a good feel as to why we are bringing these pieces of information forward each month. So let's start off on page 44. So this will be the list of reports that we provide, the same reports that we provide on a monthly basis. So we're going to kind of walk through each one of these and what they mean. So let's scroll on to 45, and this is going to be our revenue report. So top thing, every month that comes in, I want to make sure you know how much money is moving in and out of the ESD on a monthly basis, so you have a good contemporary view of what it is that we're doing. So the top one it's going to show is revenue that we've recognized in the month. So you'll see on that top thing, the current period is July. We received about $2 million in the general fund, $3 million in the special revenue fund, and $1 million in the internal service fund. So the general fund is going to be the state receipts that we are bringing in from what we will call our resolution revenues. So those are the things that as an ESD, you're required to spend 90% of it on the districts. We receive that revenue into there. We also receive a handful of other types of revenue, things like interest income. So you see earnings on investments. That would be what we earn on interest. We receive indirect charges. So when we charge our grants and administrative fee, we record that as revenue over on the general fund. And then we'll get a smattering of other things that come on the general fund as well. The general fund funds our administrative services. You'll commonly hear us refer to it as the 105. That's pretty much the people that are represented in here, and our Tier 1 services, and also holds the funds that our districts pay for Tier 2 services. So what you're seeing there, that $2 million is 2 months worth of state school fund revenues. So per the state school fund calculation, they send it out. They send you 2 payments in July because way back when, a while ago, they shorted everybody the June payment and said, we'll make it up to you next year. They've never made it up. They just pay a double payment in July. Technically, ODE owes every single district 1 month of state school fund payment at any point in time. So, fun fact.
Or less than fun fact.
Yeah. Just so we remember what we operate at. Okay, special revenue, you're gonna see 2 main things in the special revenue fund. So we mainly think about this as our grant fund, and that's what you see a lot of stuff coming in. You will also see some really large charges as we do our Medicaid administrative claims funds. I'll get more into that as those come in. They're a bit more of a complicated factor, and there's none of them right now. But we are seeing that state and local sources, that $2.9 million, that almost $3 million. We got permission this year for the EIDCSE grant to do a pre-draw on the grant. So we were able to draw 1/4 of revenue early so we could have cash in the bank before we start incurring the expenses. There were a lot of ESDs that were in a position that ODE has been so late on getting reimbursements out, they were running into cash flow problems to be able to run the large grants. So this was step 1 to a solution heading in the right direction of sort of acknowledging that. There are other problems in the way they did it. We'll talk about that in about 4 months. But currently, we've got about $3 million in the bank because we were able to pre-draw on the EI grant. Debt and capital, you're not going to see much in there almost ever. The internal service fund, this runs our Tier 2 services and our enterprise services. And we talked about OAESD earlier. We also run OAESD through that internal service fund. So of that $1.1 million of revenue you're looking at, $550,000 of it belongs to OAESD. The rest of us is us setting up our billings for things that we know we're already contracted for with districts this year. So those are revenues coming in, and Amy's going to call me out on it, so I'm just going to confess to it right now. No, that's not necessarily money coming in. So it is when things are recognized, which in the public space doesn't follow any of the normal rules that you would want it to. It is neither the moment that cash comes in, nor when revenue is more likely than not. The standard for accounting on there is revenue is recognized when it is more likely than not to be received. We are on a weird blended cash accrual basis, which means we kind of record things when we want to. So the cash received is typically the one that we do in the internal service fund. The other ones tend to be the special revenue fund is cash received. The internal service fund tends to be the moment we put the billing out there, we record it, we'll just put the revenue on the book at the same time. I told you some more detail, right? They'll all promise you I won't take this much time for every time we go through this. Let's go to the expenditure report next. So this is going to be the opposite side, which is all of the cash we have going out of the system. And you'll see July is an odd month for us. So you'll get used to seeing a much bigger payroll number. That first salaries and wages line is generally going to be much larger because over the summer, the licensed staff are off. And so we do not record any salary for them in July or August. What you do see, however, is under supplies and materials, we normally don't spend $1 million in supplies and materials per month. But what does happen is that at the beginning of the year, we're paying our large software contracts generally upfront. So we'll have almost 3 months worth of large expenditures as we kind of preload in those obligations that our contractors align with our fiscal year so that we always have cash-ready appropriations available to pay it. So you see that $1 million going out there. That $2.3 million of total operating expenses, you should be expecting in an average month, that's probably going to be about $3.6 million this year, about the ballpark. So what I will do each month is that when it's not sitting at that 3.6, I'll make sure you understand what happened differently to that 3.6. So I always want to be able to reconcile back, and I'll say, hey, here was this large transit that we sent out, or here's a one-time fund thing, or those weird Medicaid administrative claims came in this month. I always want to make sure that I can explain the differences between what we would consider normal operations and something material that happens in our funds.
Appreciate that, like the double, payroll cost last.
Yep, those payroll costs, they look shocking to you. Let's go to page 47. So this year-to-date net position report, I keep this in here almost as a legacy basis. This is really important one day per year. When you close your books at the end of June and you get the final numbers, that tells you what your fund balances are. This is a running total that says how much moves in and how much moves out. It does mean that at certain points in time, you'll see really huge balances sitting on the funds, and at some points in time, they'll be very upside down. You're always welcome to look at it. I personally don't spend a whole lot of time examining that. I only really look at it when I'm going to try and do a full year projection with the number. But I keep it in there for you to take a look at. Notes payable. So one of the things that we have to keep in mind is we have debt that is due, and I always want to make sure that you understand what's coming due when. So you see we have 2 payments that are going to be due this year in November and in May, and those are the payments that are on our full faith credit obligation bond that funded the renovation of the building here. Finally, we're getting into what I consider to be the most pertinent thing that I can show you. So cash. One of the reasons I always want to show you cash, and you'll hear as we went through revenues and we went through expenses, I can explain away a lot of things. I can call out that something came in anomalously good, or we spend out a little bit more money, and if you get lost in that, it's easy to lose track of what's going on with the organization. And quite frankly, if I was bluffing, I can bluff you on those numbers. Nobody can bluff the cash balance that is in the bank. That, as members of the board, when you're doing the fiscal oversight of the organization, if you have a clear picture of what's going through the bank account and how that's stabilized through time, you have a clear long-term picture of the fiscal solvency of the agency. So I really do, it's one of the big things that I want everybody paying attention to every month. So what we will track is we'll see the deposits and the withdrawals that go through from each of the accounts. LGIP, that's our long-term government investment fund. That's where we put our money that earns interest, that stays with us, managed by Oregon. And then UMPA is like our local checking account, so that's what we pay our contemporary bills through. So at the beginning of the month, we had about $14.9 million. We ended with that $18.3 million because we received a lot more revenues in than we paid out. A word of warning to everybody as they look at those deposits and withdrawals. A lot of the deposits and withdrawals are moving from one account to the other. So as the year goes on, those deposits and withdrawals are going to look really big because when I move $3 million from the LGIP to UMPA, it's going to pump both of those back up. And when I say, cool, now I can move another $2 million back from UMPA to make it on there, it's just going to keep making those things rise up over time. You'll see those numbers getting large. Interest, we will see our interest earned sitting here every month as well. That is something that I always have an eye on because we actually earn quite a bit of interest income off of these, and we want to make sure we understand the implications of that interest every month. So let's keep scrolling. Let's look at the rest of this on here. So a single snapshot in time of cash doesn't give you the context you need for health. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the cash balance trending. So what you're seeing here is this is the ending month balance of both of our accounts combined. So you can see over the months, you'll see those lumpy things where you get a big payment in and the cash balance goes high. We have some large expenditures going out. It's been a while since we've received revenue. You'll see the cash balances go low. We do always have to keep our eye on our projected low cash balance, right? You have to manage to making sure that you have enough money in your account in order to pay your bills, regardless of whether you anticipate there's going to be future revenues to do that or not. What you'll see if you're looking at this is that our minimum cash balance runs north of $10 million. LBL never runs into the cash crunch position that many other institutions run into, and we are incredibly grateful to our predecessors to make sure that it was that way when we got here. Next, and this is the one that I really want you to keep your eye on, this is the moving average cash balance. So because the cash balance goes lumpy from month to month, it can be easy to lose sight as to what's going in over time. What this chart is showing you is each month saying what was the average cash balance for the previous 12 months. And so what you're able to see is that if the average cash balance for 12 months is going down, that means we're spending more money than we have coming in, right? And you'll actually see the tail of that in the first 6 or 7 months that you're looking at on this chart. And if you see that, you absolutely should be asking us the questions why. The answer there is because at that point in time, we were paying the cost of renovating the building. So we had more cash going out of the bank account than we had coming in. You'll see once we hit that kind of March of 24, now you're basically getting an average balance. It's moving a little up or a little down by the month on there, and that's what we would expect to see. That's what we want to see going forward. To the extent that we ever see that trend line drifting up, we should be able to tell you why it's drifting up. And since we're a public institution, we should make sure that it's drifting up for the right purpose, like we need to put money in our capital account because sooner or later we're going to have to sink $1 million into the building, or we need to actually deploy additional resources because we have more money coming in than we're putting out. So we should keep an eye on it moving up. Also, if we see it trending down, we want to understand why is it going down? Is it a deliberate action? Is it something that has a cliff, right? Or have we committed to something over time that eventually we're not going to have the money for? Or is it a temporary thing that we put into place? All of these things on here, when you're seeing this kind of trend coming through, we are answerable to those. Please ask the questions. We have to be able to answer them for you to have the comfort that we're operating the way that we're supposed to. All right, and then finally, on page 49, this is interest rates moving over time. And I do always want to keep sight of this on here. Like I said, we receive a substantial amount of interest income. Last year's interest income was about $840,000. And that's terrific when it's coming in. When you look at the interest rates that are on the chart here, you'll see we were making $840,000 because interest rates were about 4.7% last year. If you go back a short while ago, into 22, you will see interest rates that are well less than 1%. Well, if interest rates drop at the same rate that they increased, that $800,000 just goes down to $200,000 or less instantly. So we always have our eye on this. This is something that comes into the general fund, and what we're mindful of is making sure that we are not dependent upon the spending, right? And we do, very admittedly, have a little bit of dependency on the spending. We are floating some things centrally in the fund that we say we're counting on that interest. Now, we know that if we have to, we can unwind them if the interest rates go down. But we're going to keep our eye on it to make sure, because that is a material source of funding for us.
I have a question, Russell.
Yeah.
Do you estimate that this percentage might be going down? Because if I look at the trend here, we were going up, and then now we're decreasing. Do you think in the next month or even up to next year, is it going to be drastically lower? My short answer, if I knew the answer to that, I'd be trading on Wall Street. I know.
But more what's going on in time, if you're following what goes on, there are a couple of dynamics that drive whether interest rates go up or down. So traditionally, in a weak economy, the Fed will make money policy changes that decrease interest rates on there. With lower interest rates, it incentivizes people to spend. It's cheaper to borrow, and it's less effective to save. So people tend to spend more in the economy, which stimulates it. When the economy is too hot or inflation goes high, they tend to raise interest rates in order to counteract that. We are at a really weird time right now in the uncertainty as to what is the potential future of the economy on there, and also with a stronger guiding hand on what the government wants the rates to do as opposed to letting the Fed operate independently. So it would be really hard to make a call as to where it goes in the future. What I will say is typically you don't see large interest rate shocks unless something drastic is going on in the economy. The Fed tends to not want to move the interest rate by more than a quarter point per quarter because they don't want to shock the markets into panic. But you will see, if you look back on there are times where when things are happening, they will move it. As a sort of final thought on there, and you really regret ever asking me another interest rate question again. But as a final thought, there's over time, if you look at a long-term period of interest rates are what we would call mean reverting. They tend to go up and go down, but they always kind of stay stable along a certain rate. And for historically, that stable rate was sitting in the 4 to 5% range, except for since 2008 to now. So it was only recently acknowledged that lower than 4 is the new normal. And so at some point in time, if the current economic theory holds, we would expect the mean reverting rate to actually drop back down to what is considered normal in the current economy. But it is really, it's a weird market out there, and if you have good insight into what it is, let me know. I've got some financial questions I'll put in tomorrow.
I would be.
Yep. Any other questions? We have gobs of detail underneath this that we're able to provide. So this isn't all we can provide to you. This is just the best summarized information we can do on each month. If you have individual questions or want to know more about it, you can ask in here. You can also reach out at any point in time. We're happy to sit down and spend time and get into the details. So anybody, we want to make sure that you have the level of comfort that you need in order to be able to make the decisions you need to at the table here. That's the longest I'm ever going to go on this until the next budget.
Any questions?
I have a general question. I'm wondering, and maybe Jason, this might be a question for you, Andy.
Okay.
Does the board, you board members, do we ever get like a financial one-on-one thing?
It's a good question. So, as a part of the OSBA training, we are going to get some of that.
Okay.
The other thing that we will do as well is we will spend a bit more time during our retreat in early February, where Rocco will have some time for you to get more of that information that will position you in a good spot for being ready when we get into budget planning.
Okay.
So, yeah, good question.
The thing I will warn you about, what you hear in OSBA is really district-centric, and we don't operate like a district. So take it with a grain of salt.
Okay. Our financials are considerably different than school district financials. Rocco is excellent at explaining in layman's terms the complicated piece that is an ESD budget. So, and he's always he does an excellent job. He's always, so feel free to reach out to him or me or Jason, and then we can direct you in the right direction for an answer. But he's a great question.
Okay.
All right, so Jason, it is your turn.
Okay. So I'm going to be cognizant of time here, and there's a number of things that are on my superintendent's report, and also a bit of a presentation that I want to do that I think is important as we get to know each other and our new board and our board superintendent relationship and everything. So I wanted to take a little bit of time for you to hear a little bit of my story as it relates to my why as a leader. And so I'm going to actually share my screen here so you can all see what I'm wanting you to see, as well as for Lori on your end to be able to see it as well. So, can you see that okay now, Lori? Okay,
Yes.
so I just want to share a little bit in terms of knowing our why is really important as leaders. And we're all leaders sitting at this table, and we need to really reflect and think about what's important to us. Why do we do this work? Why am I at the ESD? And I'm just really going to point out four points here that I wanted to share with you. And this is a slide that I've shared with our leadership team and our staff. But to start with, I'm here for children like Pearl. So Pearl was my niece, and at your spots, and I will email this to you, Lori, so that you can see this as well. I left a little statement that something that I did last year with the staff. I like plants, and so I did a little planting with the superintendent activity, and it could give a little insight into really a calling for me of being at the ESD versus being in a school district. So my niece Pearl was born with a prenatal diagnosis. My sister had a prenatal diagnosis where Pearl had Tau syndrome. It's a rare chromosomal disorder, and she really wasn't expected to live past her birth. She actually lived for 6 years before her passing. She would be 13 at this point. And Pearl received so many different services from people that work at our ESD, from EIECSD specialists to SLPs, physical therapists, occupational therapists, audiologists, teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing. Pearl was deaf, he was partially blind, and had a lot of different needs, and was a joy to our family, and taught me a lot. And so one of the things that I want to do for you is I'm going to give you a little piece of my family. But when Pearl was born, my sister had a friend of hers who was a pediatrician that she worked with that brought a pearl plant to her. And these are they're pearl plant starts that I've started. And before you leave tonight, I'll show you about how much water to give them to keep them going. So I let them dry out for just the last 2 days. They just got started about 3 weeks ago. But these pearl plants are pearl plant starts from a friend of my sister's when Pearl was born. They're all over my house at this point. They're all over many of our staff members' houses because I shared them. And so it's just it's a little piece of my family that I want to give a gift to you. Pearl taught me even more about the importance of special education than I had, even though I had already almost 20 years of experience in the classroom and as a building administrator and curriculum director and superintendent. And so she's a big part of my why. The other part of my why is I believe wholeheartedly that, and this goes with serving students like Pearl and all of the other students that we serve, ESD staff save and improve lives. Straight up, there are people that without our services, there would be kiddos that could not survive and certainly could not live the healthy lives that they have with the opportunities that they have. And it's so life-altering. Another part of my why is I'm curious, and I'm about continuous improvement. I'm a person that when I get to a point where I start feeling less curious about something, it kind of tells me it's time to go and do something else, and to be able to try to create improvement. The ESD is a complicated place. A lot of different things going on here. We have things going from special education to technology to entrepreneurial things that we're doing, and it's fascinating to me, and it's kept me here for the last 5+ years interested, and it's going to keep me here longer because we do a lot of interesting stuff. And so it's a part of my why in that. And then finally, wellness and human connection and belonging. I want to impact not just the lives of our clients, but also we have 300 plus staff members. And I think that as a leader in this CEO, superintendent type of position, that I can actually make an impact and improve people's lives here. And one of the things that is really important to me is thinking about the staff experience. And so I think that the big thing is, and you can see it up on the screen here, is don't drop the glass ball. When I think about wellness, and then I'm going to shift and we'll do some of these other things that are on our list here. I think it's really important that we as leaders take the time to care about the people that we work with, and recognize that we have really important jobs. We have all of these professional responsibilities, and yet we're people, and we have lives, and we have families, and we need to make sure that we are in the care and keeping of all of that. And so this is something, you'll see this in your copy, and Lori, I'll make sure you have a copy of this as well when we see you next. But I purposely copied it with the cold punch because I've been carrying this original copy around for the last 20 years. I actually probably 22 years now. I got a copy from a professor at the University of Oregon when I was working on my administrative licensure, and just said, like, make sure that you really pay attention to what's important. And so I'm going to read it to you. I think it's important to take a moment for all of us to think about this. This came from Brian Dyson, the former vice chairman of Coca-Cola, who said, imagine life as a game in which you are juggling 5 balls in the air. You name them work, family, health, friends, and spirituality. And you're keeping all of these balls in the air. You will soon understand that work is a rubber ball. If you drop it, it will bounce back. But the other 4 balls are made of glass. If you drop one of these, they will be irrevocably scuffed, marked, nicked, damaged, or even shattered. They will never be the same. You must understand this and strive for balance. So this is something that I'm going to share during our new employee orientation. I've shared with every employee group that I've ever stood in front of in the last 20 years as a leader, and still is a guidepost for me in thinking about my own leadership. Is we have to take care of each other, but in order to do that, we have to be able to care for ourselves, and we need to be healthy ourselves and really focus on it. So it's a little bit about my why, and as we get to know each other, I'm going to build in time for all of you to be able to share your why with each other and get a chance to really create a cohesive team, which I think is really important for us. So that's just something I wanted to start with and share, and you can get your little pearl plant before you leave, if you'd like that. So, okay, I'm going to run through a couple of the other things on here. Are we good if we go just a little bit over tonight covering these things? Yeah. Okay. So A is Leadership Council Retreat. I just wanted to point out that we had a fantastic Leadership Council Retreat. It's a point of pride for me at this point that I think we've really focused a lot on culture and team. There's laughter and joy that we have with each other, and it's fun to be here. That's the other part of, I think that's always an important part of the why. So I just wanted to share that. The next one, B, is the board retreat date change. I just wanted to make sure you have this date, and we'll come back to this. It's a while from now, but us doing the February 2nd all day, and so connect with me or Lisa, and we'll bring this back again since we're running short on time to make sure that we can confirm that. In the past few years, we've done a retreat that's been about a day and a half long. I actually think that we can do it all in one day, and we'll be here at the agency for that. The next one is about appreciation. We have been, and the board has been very strategic about staff appreciation in the past, and I wanted to share our process and what we've looked at for appreciation, and I want to see if this still resonates for us as a new board superintendent team right now. What we've done, and this has evolved a little bit here and there, but we actually have our administrators track the more specific type of formal appreciations that they do. Maybe it's a card that they write a staff member, or maybe it's one staff member that calls out another staff member in a positive way at a meeting, and to track how we are being strategic and showing staff appreciation. And then what Lisa does for us is we collect those bits of information from our leaders and say, okay, well, what appreciations have happened in your program in the last month? And we just write a little note. It's a little spreadsheet that gets shared with the board so that you get a chance to have a little window into what we're doing in terms of appreciation. It's very organic because everybody has a different type, if you think about like love languages, everybody has a different way that they like to be appreciated. And so we have not dictated like, this is the certificate that you're going to get. And, in the past, it's been a little bit like that. And then that gets stale pretty quick for people. And so we've left it really open to what works for that program or that person and everything else, but then just capturing the information from the board. Is that something that the board would still like to see every month?
I think I've appreciated seeing that. I know at the end of the packet, we would always see like which department and who got an appreciation. It's nice to see like who's getting recognized.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of those things. That leadership adage of you get more of what you pay attention to, and if you're not paying attention to it, sometimes it doesn't happen. And so the fact that we're conscious about it and we pay attention to it, I think makes sure that it happens in that way. So that is that. I'm going to stop this share so we can make sure that the Lori up there. So there we go. Okay, the next thing on the list is typical roles and responsibilities. So this was in the last board packet. We are going to spend time with this type of information, the typical roles and responsibilities of the board versus the superintendent, on pages 50 and 51. Then the role of the board member outside of the ESD in terms of guidelines for board members and the public, and then the role of the board chair. We will spend more time with this when we work with Vince in terms of training, and so I'm not going to spend too much time on it now, but I did want to make sure this was in front of you for these last couple of months here, and see if you have any questions about any of these right now. We certainly will come back to them. Questions about those? Okay, and then the last thing is something we actually do need, not a specific board action about, but we certainly would like you to raise your hand on some of these, is that we have a structure in which we have some superintendent work groups. We also have some other groups where we have representation on. And so I'm just going to talk through the superintendent work groups and then see which board members would like to participate on these. Just so you know, for those of you that are new, these are superintendent work groups. These are not board committees, because primarily it allows for us to have some flexibility and to be able to have a conversation without having it be a public meeting that's noticed, so we can have a frank conversation that's offline. The big thing that we need to do is we need to make sure we just don't have a quorum in any of these. So we can have up to 3 board members per superintendent work group. So that you can see, starting on page 55, I have a proposed schedule for us in which these happen for the most part before a board meeting, so that you're not having to travel to the ESD multiple times in a month. And so you can see that the first one that we have is the annual performance review work group. And this one really is about looking at reviewing our 3-year plan as it relates to performance review, and also one of the major aspects of your board responsibilities is evaluating me as your superintendent. And so that's one that you can see we will have we will actually meet twice during the year. So, in September, we'll have that meeting. We'll talk about some goals and goal setting there. And then in June is actually the one that we use for, writing, where you'll write my evaluation. And then in the middle of the year, we'll have a checkpoint where we'll do some other goal setting, around our strategic plan during our retreat. And so that work group. And yeah, absolutely.
Did we have a technology work group at one point?
We did, but I'm actually combining that in capital improvement, so I'll walk through, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see it now. That's why I was like, wait a minute.
Absolutely.
Same with financial.
Yeah, so I'll run through all of them, and then
Okay.
you can you can think about which ones you'd like to be a part of, and you can either indicate tonight if you want to do that, or you can let Lisa and me know offline, and we can figure this out. The big one that we just want to know who might be coming in September, for that. So then the next work group is actually, this is a slight change, and good segue, Miriam, is that capital and technology improvement. In the past, we've had these as separate work groups, especially when we were looking at doing a renovation project and everything else. It kind of made sense for them to be separate. It doesn't really make sense in terms of the amount of time that we need to have them be separate. The big goal with this is to make sure that this work group would help me update the capital and technology improvement plans that we have. And so we'll work on that, and actually, that's just going to be one time with some reports that we may have during regular board meetings. So I'm just looking at that one being in October. The next one is financial planning and labor relations. And so this one is one where we will plan to have a meeting in January. However, I will say that if you are on this work group, and really we need 2 members, this is probably the biggest time commitment, because this also includes being a part of the bargaining. And so Amy is on this one to keep continuity since we're still bargaining. She is, you see her name is there as well, and I'm like, you can't quit this one yet.
Nope.
So if somebody else wants to join Amy, the plan is that we wouldn't have you start into bargaining right now, because we want to keep the continuity of that, but then we would roll into a new team with that. So that's really what that's all about. And then the final one is the communication outreach work group. And this is one that I don't have. We've actually done this with the entire board during the annual retreat the last couple of years, and we've had some things during some board meetings, and I'm going to continue that. I think it works well that way. I don't think we need a separate work group meeting for it, because we spend a good deal of time during the retreat on it. So that's for that one, and we'll have the entire board with that. So we don't really need anybody to sign up for that one. And then on page 60 are the other committees that are either by appointment or by nomination and a regional vote. And you'll see that we have some of these that are already filled currently, and then as like OSBA comes up and they need somebody to fill a position, we could have somebody else step in and fill the position. But there are 2 open committees that we need someone from our board to be on. And one of them is the Governance Council for Oregon Association of ESDs, OAESD. And so this is one where we would actually need, and we can do this one tonight if you want, or you can think about it and we can actually bring it back in September. It's just fine. But I just need one person to be a part of the Governance Council with me. So each ESD has a board member and a superintendent that's a part of the Governance Council. And then the next one is being a part of the OAESD Legislative Committee, and that will be one that will probably have a little bit more going on with it as we start legislative work into the short session later this year. But those are 2 open.
Actually, the other one too is the rent, because I
And the rent,
resigned.
Oh, that's right, you
from-
stepped down, I
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
thank
I
you,
did.
Marion.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then the REN. And so the REN is the Willamette Regional Educational Network. There's a separate pot of money that actually is run through, in our region, it's our 3 counties, I can't even talk, it's getting late, our 3 counties along with Lane. And so it's actually run through Lane ESD for our region, and so thank you for that.
And if you want more information on that one, I'm more than happy to share the responsibilities, what you get. You do get a stipend being in that board. That's why I had to leave, because the stipend anymore.
So I'll stop there. No one needs to speak up about any of these right now, but there are things to think about, and you can let me know, if you're interested in one of these, and if you have anything, I'll just stop and see if anybody has anything right now.
We're no longer on the run.
Yeah, so I resigned from the REN, I think it was either last month or June, I can't remember which month.
Yeah, I think it was in June.
Yeah, and you do receive a stipend, and the reason why I resigned is because it was messing with my purse, because you get a stipend, and because you get paid through LBLESD, that's how they have to process payroll. It was actually directing and telling PERS that I was employed by LBLESD, but I wasn't employed, and it was messing with my purse. And so I just said, I just don't want to be, I don't want it to mess with my purse anymore. So that's why I resigned, yeah. But it's really, you get together, you talk to other educators, there's training. Some of them you can do it through Zoom, some in person at the LBLESD. And it's really about supporting and helping the educator network. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm familiar with RAN.
Yeah.
Because when I worked in Eugene,
Yeah.
I used to participate.
That would be okay.
Is that something you
But I'm
need?
hearing about
Yeah.
PERS, I'm
Yeah.
like, do I need to think?
Yeah. No, that was like, for me, that was my personal.
You certainly can do it, it's just not a stipend.
Yeah.
Either.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will consider it, let me
Okay.
do that. Yeah.
All right, touch base with me.
Okay.
You can think about it, but I'll put a tentative on that.
I would like to express interest, that way you can just write me down.
Yeah.
For the communication outreach and the capital and technology.
Okay, so communication outreach will be everyone, so I won't need to put you down, but
You know
for
what,
capital.
you know
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, so, but
All
capital
right.
and technology,
Yeah.
that's great. I'll put you down for that one.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mary.
And I do not volunteer for the labor relations one, so. Nope.
And all the different meeting times that's here, these are Tuesdays, right?
They are.
Okay.
Yeah, with the exception of, well, actually, I think February 2nd is a Tuesday too. I can't remember, but, that's not a board meeting day though.
Okay, that's Tuesday.
So
Well,
I'll
that's-
say Tuesday.
Yeah, I got it.
It's Monday.
Okay. Would it be
Oh,
a
okay.
hard 33? That's my assumption.
Yeah, we'll be
Okay,
done, we'll be
so-
done at 3:30 for that, yeah.
Just clarify.
I'd be interested, but about financial planning and labor relations, but I think I need to hear more about it.
Okay,
I don't know.
why don't, we can schedule some time and, we can talk a little bit more
Okay.
about it.
Okay.
That sounds good.
It's lots of fun.
We can spend a lot of time with Rocco.
You can ask me questions, too.
No, I think if you want to, reach out to Lisa and let's schedule some time, and if we could schedule time with Rocco and Christina and I, and we can talk about the various aspects of it. Yeah. And you can also talk to Amy about it. Yeah. That's great. Okay, that is what I had for tonight. Thank you for going a little over. There are some important dates at the end of the day that, or the end of the day, end of the agenda here, that I think are, and I just want to remind you that you are invited next week to the fall in-service at the Lynn County Fairgrounds if you'd like to attend. We're going to have, there's going to be a great speaker that we had last year that we are having come again, and I can get a chance to introduce you to the staff. Just let us know, yeah. So, Amy? Oh, awesome.
All right, yeah, so, just as you said, there's some important dates at the end. So Tuesday, August 26th, from 9 to 12 is the fall in-service. I'll be there. It's always, I've always really enjoyed the time to kind of, this is one of the, just the spring and fall in-service is the only time like the entire staff together. So, as a board member, it feels good to be part of that. And so I like to participate in those, and you are definitely invited. It's at the Lynn County Fairgrounds from 9 to 12. And then Wednesday, September 3rd, that was the date that we chose, from 6 to 9 for the first session of the OSBA board training. And then Tuesday, September 16th, is our next regular board meeting from 6 to 8, and then,
That's my birthday, by the way, if you ever wanted to point it out there, I'll be turning 38, so just
happy birthday, happy early birthday.
I'm celebrating it with you guys.
Awesome.
All right.
And then, hopefully we'll just think about the different, the groups, and, so we will need some volunteers for the annual performance review group. I am willing to participate, or I'm willing to be part of it, but I just don't know if that particular evening I'm going to be able to.
Okay.
Just, it gets so busy with I have one kid playing soccer, and my husband works a rotating schedule, so it gets a little crazy, 2 kids playing soccer. And then, Tuesday, October 20th is our meeting the following month, from 6 to 8, and sorry that we went late tonight, but I will adjourn this meeting at 8:16 PM.
Thank you, everyone.